They determined that I had congestive heart failure. Before finding carnivore, I was in a very dark place for a very long time. Dark hopelessness, lots of anxiety. I had a lot of health issues. I was a big mess. I was about 100 pounds heavier at my worst, at my heaviest. Health issue after health issue. I was diagnosed with IBS, sleep apnea. I had arthritis in my elbows and back, and I had arthritis in my foot that they said was gout. These were some of my pills I took over the years. I'm here to tell you, you don't realize the extent of your brain fog until you get out of it. You can't see the fog until you're out of the fog.
There are many people who are sort of newer to this whole carnivore thing that almost have a hard time believing these things. Can you assure everyone at home that the only thing you changed to reverse all of these things is your diet? Today, we are here with Kerry from Homesteadhow and the Healing Humanity documentary. Kerry, I'm very excited to have you on the show. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. I look forward to talking to you, Max. Thank you for having me.
No worries, it's my pleasure. So, my first question is, you've had incredible results on the carnivore diet. You're doing incredible now, but life wasn't always like this for Kerry Mann. Can you take us back, just over a year ago when you started the carnivore diet? What was life like? What issues did you have? How was your mood on a day-to-day basis? Those sorts of things.
Yeah, well, before finding carnivore, I was in a very dark place for a very long time. I was about 100 pounds heavier at my worst, at my heaviest, but I had just health issue after health issue, and then they started piling up. I was diagnosed with IBS. I had sleep apnea. I was snoring. I went in for several sleep studies. I had arthritis in my elbows and back, and I had arthritis in my foot that they said was gout. And that was for about 18 months before I found carnivore. It was so painful, I could barely put pressure down on my foot. I'd go to the grocery store and I'd be moving around on one of those little mobility scooters. I had 2 kidney stones. I had my gallbladder removed because my stomach was hurting so badly. And I had gallstones. In retrospect, probably from not eating enough fat like I should have been. But they took my gallbladder out. My appendix burst on the operating room table. It nearly killed me. If I wasn't going in for the surgery, I could have died from that. And my stomach was always hurting. Every time I would eat, my stomach would hurt. My stomach was always gurgling and bubbling. It was always just sore. I joke around about it, but it's true. I was like farting like 500 times a day. I was just miserable. The worst thing for me was depression and anxiety. I suffered from just serious clinical suicidal depression for probably 10 to 15 years before I found carnivore. And it's hard to describe for people that haven't been through depression before, but it was just utter hopelessness, dark hopelessness, lots of anxiety. And then eventually that turned into insomnia where I couldn't sleep at night. These were some of my pills I took over the years. A lot of these were for depression and anxiety, stomach issues. But they just kept giving me more medication and my depression never got any better. And I was pretty hopeless when I found carnivore. A couple of years before that, about 7 years ago, I was at home and I went to stand up and I got very dizzy and the side of my face was numb and my fingers started tingling and I was just confused. I couldn't think of the words to say. And so my wife called 911 and I took an ambulance to the hospital and I had a TIA mini stroke. And I ended up at the stroke unit in the hospital for 4 or 5 days. Thankfully, it wasn't a permanent stroke. The symptoms I was having went away, or most of them went away. But they did a bunch of tests because you're like, man, you're in your late 30s. You're like, I think I was 37 at the time, and you're having a mini stroke. What's wrong with this guy? And they did all these tests on me, and they determined that I had congestive heart failure. Which basically means my heart couldn't keep up with the needs of my body. I had an ejection fraction of 44 and normal is 60. So every time I'd stand up or do anything, I was fatigued and I was tired. And besides the congestive heart failure, I guess the last thing is I have had an irregular heartbeat since birth, all throughout kindergarten, elementary school, middle school. I always had to wear heart monitors to school because my heart was just very erratic. So I had all those things. I also had skin cancer on my ear several years ago. So I had a lot of health issues. I was a big mess before finding carnivore diet for sure.
Jeez. Now, that is incredible. To you and I, we hear many stories like this. People have all of these issues, and the only thing they change in their life is they remove the processed garbage and all the other foods that they're eating, and they switch to a carnivore diet, and they see these things clear up. So to you and I, it's normal, but there are many people who are sort of newer to this whole carnivore thing that almost have a hard time believing these things. Can you assure everyone at home that the only thing you changed to reverse all of these things is your diet?
Yeah, great question. 100% without a shadow of a doubt. The only thing I changed, and I wouldn't believe it if I didn't go through it, and I haven't subsequently interviewed hundreds of people that have done the same thing, but the only thing that changed for me was my diet, my nutrition. I went on a strict, proper human diet, carnivore diet, returned to natural foods, eliminated the seed oils, the sugars, all the processed stuff. And every one of those things I described to you and all of these pills, like I was on all of these pills at one time. I'm on no longer on any medication. My inflammation, arthritis started going away. My depression lifted. Brain fog went away like a couple weeks into carnivore diet. I started sleeping better. My mood improved. All of these things happened relatively quickly for me. The IBS, the stomach pain started going away. That took a couple weeks, but every single one of those things was all 100% nutrition. And it kind of makes me mad, Max, when I think about it in retrospect, because not one of the doctors prescribing me all those pills ever mentioned anything about food or nutrition. And that was literally the only thing I was doing wrong. That was it. I wasn't sick for all of those reasons because of lack of medication, prescription medication. It was just my nutrition the entire time.
Mm. It is incredible, isn't it? How serotonin, one of the main hormones that, gives us the sense of happiness, 90% of it is made in the gut. And, the first thing you'll do is you'll say to a psychiatrist, I'm feeling depressed, and they'll give you a drug that upregulates the amount of serotonin you have. When in reality, if they just said to you, remove all these plant toxins from your diet, you'll make a lot more and you'll feel a lot better. Obviously, that doesn't make anyone any money, so I think we know why that happens. Now, to further illustrate, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off there. To further illustrate this point that is entirely caused by food, you went on a cruise recently, well, recently-ish. It was a while back now, and nothing else changed again. But the steaks you were having were cooked in oils that were inflammatory, and all of a sudden, some of these symptoms came back. Can you take us through that story? If you're enjoying this interview and you want to see more carnivore-related content like this, consider subscribing down below.
Yeah, it was scary. So my family and I, we went on a cruise. It was our first vacation we went on in about 10 years. And I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm not exaggerating. I'm sharing 100% of the truth. You could not have chosen better carnivore meals than I did on this cruise. I didn't have anything off plan. I didn't have a single piece of lettuce or anything like that. I had bacon and eggs and steak and chicken, and that was it. But yes, as you mentioned, it was cooked in seed oils, uh, and my inflammation started coming back. This was a 7-day cruise. I think around day 4, I started noticing inflammation. I started getting fatigued and tired. And like around day 5 or 6, my depression came back. Like I didn't even remember how bad it was before. Just that quickly, it came back just from consuming those seed oils, which are highly inflammatory. But yeah, it was crazy. It was very eye-opening for me. A lot of people ask me like, "Do you ever cheat on carnivore?" And I don't, because I came from such a dark place before with the depression and anxiety. Like I was begging God, give me anything I can do to get out of this depression and anxiety. And now I found it. I'm not going to mess with it, especially just to eat something like off plan. But this was completely carnivore. It made me realize something. We're doing this documentary and I've been advocating for carnivore diet, but really what it is a return to eating natural foods. For me, that happens to be carnivore diet. That happens to be the cleanest we can eat in the world. But I ate carnivore on the cruise, and it wasn't a proper human diet because the meat was saturated with seed oils and stuff that I shouldn't be eating that's not natural for humans to eat.
Mm. It is incredible. I had a very similar experience. I went to Bali and I had to have steaks cooked in seed oils, and all of a sudden like my energy throughout the trip was just tanking day by day. I started feeling on edge, and I never really had, well, I didn't think I had these symptoms prior to starting carnivore. But when you have that contrast of just feeling incredible for so long, even the smallest changes, you're like, whoa, this is what life used to be like. It's incredible how that happens.
Yeah.
Now, how did you discover the carnivore diet? I hear there's a man by the name of Dante Ferrigno, which had a bit of an effect on you.
Yeah, my wife and I were watching YouTube, and this guy Dante Ferrigno came on, and he said he was going to only eat meat. I think for 30 days or 90 days, and I was like, this guy's insane. However, many years ago, I learned about the ketogenic diet through a documentary on Netflix, And I had some success with keto on and off over the years. It was the only thing that ever like touched my depression a little bit, but I could never moderate it, and the depression would come back. But so when I heard Dante talking about this, I'm like, well, this makes sense. This is just a strict ketogenic diet. Like scientifically, this should work, but he's insane. There's no way this, you can't just eat meat. You're going to get bored. You're going to clog your arteries. You're going to have a heart attack, like all these foolish things that a lot of people think. I was thinking. And then I realized his video was 2 years old. And kind of being a jerk, kind of being cynical, I said to my wife, I was like, let's fast forward. We'll go look at his most recent video from right now. There's no way this guy's still eating meat. And we did that, and I looked at him, I couldn't even recognize Dante afterwards. It was incredible. He'd lost all of his weight, but just the look on his face, just the carnivore glow, like the happiness, the mood, like his whole demeanor had changed afterwards. So that was what started me on carnivore. And then I think I watched about 1,000 Dr. Berry videos and Dr. Chafee videos, Dr. Ovadia. I just kept consuming all of these videos before, because I still convinced myself like Dante's an outlier. There's no way like other people could do this. But ultimately, I was convinced by the good doctors in some of their videos and decided to give it a try.
Mm. I think that's a great way to go about it, is to give yourself 30 days. And I think what happens to 99% of people is they become so addicted in how they feel. And, most of my family members, that's how they've got on carnivore. I've said, just give it a try. It sounds crazy. Just give it a try. Watch 30 days. And after 30 days of eating only meat, you eat something else and all of a sudden you're not feeling quite as good. It really makes it hard to go off carnivore once you start.
Yeah, 100%. In fact, I tell people that, and I even tell them like on day 31, you go back to the cupcakes and the pizza and everything, because I know very well, just like you said, they're going to get to day 30 and they're going to feel incredible. They're not going to want those things. But I kind of told myself that too when I started. I'm like, I'm just going to do this elimination diet for 30 days and then I'm going to add stuff back in. But I felt so incredible by day 30. I'm like, I'm not adding anything back in. I'm not missing anything. Why would I add anything back in? I feel great.
Yeah, it is incredibly addicting. How did your family and friends react when you first started this? Were they like, "Oh no, this isn't going to end well. We gotta." I've heard stories of people whose families have had interventions for them when they've started the proper human diet. What happened to you with that one?
Well, my family was like, oh boy, here he goes again, because I had tried every diet up until this point. Weight Watchers, counting calories, OMAD, plant-based, fasting. Like I had tried everything. So I think like my wife and my girls are just like, yeah, well, just let him do his thing. Here he goes again, sort of thing. So the more my extended family, I remember I had a family reunion I went to and they just thought I was crazy. But they said something that kind of motivated me more, that made me really mad. A cousin of mine said, why don't you just eat in moderation? And it really made me angry because I started realizing that the reason I had failed on keto in the past and all those other diets was because I'd have some success or I'd lose a little bit of weight. And then I would tell myself, why don't I just go back to moderation? And I've since realized on carnivore, I was addicted to sugar and the standard American diet. And for people that are watching, you shouldn't be ashamed if you're addicted to sugar and the standard American diet. My parents got me hooked on sugar. I did it with my kids. It's like we didn't know any better. But these foods are engineered to be highly addictive. So it's not our fault, but you cannot moderate an addiction. And so when people say, why don't you just eat in moderation? I'm like, no, that is why I yo-yoed so much before. I think I have the world record for most weight loss if you count like gained, lost like a million times over again. So yeah, the family was pretty good. My daughter Lily, when I was on day 8 of carnivore, I convinced my daughter Lily, who was 18 at the time, to start carnivore. She had this horrible skin condition called HS. It looks like acne, but it's incredibly painful. It's all over her chest and back, and she suffered for 5 years with this horrible pain. She can't. My wife and I took her to every dermatologist in the state, specialists, like really expensive doctors, like, please help our daughter. Lily came to us crying once, just saying, I just want to die. This hurts so bad. They keep giving me pills and injections and nothing works. She started carnivore when I was on day 8. And I think by her, like, she was in it herself about 8 days, half of her back had cleared up. And by day 30, she was completely free of HS after 5 years of suffering and all of these medications and everything. And again, not one of those doctors or dermatologists, I should say, not one of them mentioned nutrition to her. That was entirely the issue. It was just her nutrition that whole time.
Wow. Yeah, like you were saying with the moderation, I think it's one of the greatest marketing campaigns in history from the big food companies telling everyone to moderate. They make these things incredibly addictive. When we eat them, it releases so much pleasure. And with the human psyche being wired in a way where you're constantly either seeking pleasure or avoiding pain, when these things give you so much pleasure, it's all you can think about. It's kind of like the drug dealer who gives you the little hit, moderate this, boom,
Yes.
you're into it. It's impossible to moderate. Now, if you went back to old Kerry and you said to him, "Hey, listen here, we've eaten only meat now for the last year," he would probably think, well, that sounds a bit boring. I quite like food. And I'm sure there are many people who, they have similar issues to you, and they're thinking, I want all of my issues, like his, to be reversed, but I don't know if I can only eat meat for that long. Can you explain to these people how after 30 days, it's no longer discipline? The only thing you want to eat is meat. Like right now, you're not a disciplined individual for only eating meat.
Right.
You're just waking up and going, you know what? I can't wait to eat my favorite food. Can you sort of explain how the taste buds change and how your sort of perception on what food is changes?
Yeah, great question, Max. I get people that tell me now, I could never do what you're doing. And it makes me so frustrated because literally this is the easiest thing in the world. It's hard to overcome that sugar addiction, but once you do, I have no cravings for sugar. I don't think about eating. I'm completely on autopilot. I'm thankful for the meat I get to eat, but I don't think about it at all. It's literally the easiest thing. And I feel absolutely incredible. Anybody watching this, or if I was talking to my former self, I'd be like, listen, if you're lucky at the rate you're going, you're going to make it to maybe your 60s or 70s because I was so unhealthy. What is 30 days out of 70 years of your life? It's like a blip on the radar. It's like nothing. And if you're going to go your entire life having never feel what it feels like to be a proper human with no inflammation, no brain fog, none of this constant, oh, my elbow hurts, my back hurts, all these aches and pains. What a wasted, squandered life you're going to live if you go your entire life, die young early, and having never really lived. That's been one of my big carnivore epiphanies, Max, is besides all of these crazy health issues, like I mentioned, I had a lot of health issues, but if you ignore all of those, most of the people on the standard American diet, they're in the standard American brain fog. It's like you're drunk. It's like you're fatigued. It's like you're mildly intoxicated. I'm not exaggerating when I'm saying that. A lot of people listening to this are going to be like, yeah, I got brain fog, but I'm here to tell you, you don't realize the extent of your brain fog until you get out of it. You can't see the fog until you're out of the fog. Everybody says it does carnivore. I knew I had brain fog before, but once you get out of it, you see life so much more clearly. Your cognitive ability, your brain power, everything improves to a level that you cannot understand or realize unless you've tried it. And the fact that most of humanity is going to go their entire lives just kind of riding the couch, doing the bare minimum, going along to get along is so sad. And it's like such a miracle that any of us are alive and to squander your whole life doing that. Just try it. 30 days. Like try it's like winning the lottery. Like I don't know how else to sell it to people. And it's so funny too, because it's like I'm not even selling you anything. You can just go do it. Dr. Barry's not selling you anything. Literally, you just go eat meat and it could change your life forever.
Absolutely, very well said. So if someone is watching this interview and they've thought, you know what, everything he is saying is making sense. I want to give this a go. I'm going to give it 30 days, like he talks about. What would your advice be to them? Would you jump straight into it? Would you ease into it? A lot of people have very different perspectives on that issue. And what would your advice be in terms of the mindset behind starting?
Yeah. Oh, that's a tricky question. So I usually advise people to take baby steps and work into it. For me, I did a ketogenic diet, which was like 20 carbs or less. I was doing that before I started carnivore, so it was a lot easier. If I was eating a bunch of pizza and ice cream, for me, my personality type, I would probably go cold turkey and I would just suck it up and I would go straight on carnivore. But some people do that and then they fall off and it's too difficult and then they fail because of it. So I guess it depends on what type of person you are. My wife did that, for example. She was vegetarian for years and she jumped full on into carnivore and she failed and she suffered and she got keto flu really bad. She has since restarted and she took baby steps. She did keto going into it and that's helped her a lot out. So I guess it depends on your personality type. But the only other thing I would say on that is the first week or two can be tough. You're overcoming a lifelong of sugar addiction. Your body's purging out all these toxins and everything like that. When that happened to me, and um, I had like the keto flu, and you feel tired and fatigued, and you feel kind of crummy. I'm like, suck it up. for 42 years, I just trashed my body. Of course, I'm going to feel a little crummy for a little while, but just realize, anyone listening to this, just realize if you are feeling down the first week or two, that is completely temporary. You get over that hump and you will absolutely start to feel incredible. Your cravings will completely go away. You'll stop thinking about food and eating and all that. So just know that that is a temporary thing that you got to get through.
Absolutely. Like you said, the first couple of weeks for a lot of people, you've got so much to overcome. Your entire gut microbiome has to change. Your body's changing from this fuel source that it's been on its entire life, switching over to fats. It's just such a drastic change for the human body. And a lot of people, they start it, and even the craving in the first couple of weeks, like we talked about earlier, so much pleasure in these foods. Your brain just does whatever it can to trick you into it. Some of the mental tricks that my brain used to play on me in the first couple of weeks to get me back onto the sugary food is incredible. But if you can get through those first couple of weeks, your life will change. Now, where can people find more of you, Kerry, if they want to see more of your content? You've got this great YouTube channel, which I'm a big fan of. You've got this incredible documentary that's coming out. Can you tell us a little bit about them?
Yeah, so I've done a lot of videos on carnivore on my YouTube channel. It's called Homesteadhow. It's kind of weird because I've been a homesteader for years and I've been doing homesteading videos for about 8 or 9 years. When I found carnivore, I was going to do one 30-day update video on carnivore, but I started hearing all of these incredible stories of other people changing their lives, and it's all I do now. I talk about carnivore, I interview people, and I'm doing this documentary. So that's the other way you can find me is our documentary is healinghumanity.movie. And we're following real people around over the course of a year that are doing a proper human diet to overcome some pretty remarkable, pretty crazy health issues. And we're putting that out there as a documentary for people to inspire people, to show them the power of a proper human diet.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate you coming on. Kerry Mann, you are the man. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Max. I appreciate it. This has been fun.
Cheers.